Salam and welcome back to SomaliDispatch.com's YouTube channel. My name is Abdelkader Goulet. Somaliland's presidential election dispute escalated this week as police shot at and peppered pro-democracy demonstrators in the capital, Hargeisa. Prominent Somaliland traditional elders are currently said to be mediating the two sides as police continue to hand down and arrest lawmakers and opposition party leaders for participating in the peaceful rally on Thursday. To discuss these and other issues, I spoke with Mohamed Jama Koodbuur, a chair of the Somaliland's House of Representatives Foreign Affairs Committee. He was in Hargeisa today. Salam and welcome to Somali Dispatch once again, Mohamed Jama Koodbuur. Could you please give us the latest update on Somaliland's election and political dispute?
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Somaliland currently, actually, as you're probably aware, going through a very political crisis or issues with regards to with the election. And obviously the dispute on that regard, it turns out to become violent, which is basically conducted by the government by using heavy-handed to unarmed civilians who were protesting in favor to hold the presidential election. They were a very small group. It was very peaceful, so that actually makes things a very worrying situation at the moment. But currently, there's elders from different parts of Somaliland regions came together and trying to mediate between the government and the opposition parties. So the announced demonstration, which is due to take place in actually tomorrow, has been postponed or just been put on hold until we see progress to that mediation. But things are quite worrying at the moment. We're in a worrying situation, and government are actually still reluctant to take a positive direction in terms to cool down the situation or the tension. But things are at the moment dealt by the elders, in order to bring both sides to the table.
Right, thank you for that. As a result of yesterday's rally, the police could be seen arresting, torturing unarmed civilians, as you said, and party officials are currently arrested and shot at. And those demonstrators are somewhat called now pro-democracy protesters, and in favor of holding the presidential elections on time, as you've explained. How much damage and setback is that for Somaliland's quest for legitimacy, let alone full recognition?
It's really quite, as I said, quite worrying. We're in a quite worrying situation, and obviously this will have a great setback to Somaliland democracy progress, which has been continued from past 20 years or so. And I think this will have a big effect on international, relationship with our partners. This will have a negative point of view from our investors, and actually this is Somaliland being here this sort of a situation before. They did. Opposition parties and the ruling party had a dispute with regards to election, and that actually eventually ended up, agreement whether it's to extend the terms of the president or whether to come some sort of a peaceful solution to go forward. But I think this time it seems to be very, different compared to previous leaders, because previous leaders, they understood their responsibility. I think this is the difference between the current president and the previous president. They understood their responsibility. They understood their responsibility towards if things escalate, the damage and the consequence that will bring to Somaliland image and the country itself. But the current president seems to be very determined and very stubborn to stick to his guns, although he seems to be wrong all the time, because every decision he's making looks like a destruction, which could lead to destruction for Somaliland. That's why I think it's quite different, and that's why most of the Somaliland intellectual and politicians and elders are concerned the current situation, and because president seems to be very sort of a heavy-handed, stubborn, strong-minded military style. This is not the tactical he's using, so that is not helping our situation. But political parties seems to be very, willing to negotiate, willing to, compromise. But I think the difficult points are coming, or difficult issues are coming from the political, the ruling party or the president itself.
Right. The UK is credited in being a major funding and a training partner with Somaliland's overall security sector. As a UK citizen yourself and an elected lawmaker, have you provided to Britain, have you confronted, the British government or the representative in Hargeisa for some examples as it relates to RRU, for example, a unit that's funded and trained by the UK, and how that unit is being politically used in terms of, if you see the videos on social media, you see RRU commanders trained possibly by Britain and vehicles possibly provided by Britain being rammed and an attempted, what the opposition is calling, assassination of the major political party, Wadani's candidate, presidential candidate, calling for, condemning the attempted assassination on himself. Is Britain aware of this situation?
Yes, UK government are aware, and it's been informed by the, I think, certain leaders and certain elders and Somaliland British citizens who's living in UK. But surely we don't want to, escalate in order that the funding given to RRU being affected. But it's they've been informed and they're fully aware what have they done, particularly when the one of the head of the police kicked an innocent lady who was on the floor, kicked her deliberately in her chest. That's been circulating all over the world through the social media, and British government are aware that, and we warned them and we explained to them and informed them about that. But obviously, it's just we just don't want to take it too far. But obviously, as I said, British government are aware, and this will obviously have an effect on RRU, how they see RRU's their support, and I'm sure they will review and communicate the government. But I think if that happens again, obviously there is another demonstration going to take place soon if things doesn't change. I think if the police or RRU committed certain violation or human rights violation, obviously we will take further. This incident, as I said, they're aware, but I'm not sure things going to be done. I'm not sure how far the British government will take, but I think they know how people are upset about it and how damaging it is to Somaliland, or even British government itself. because they're the one who's funding and they train them. So they represent, in a way, they represent the British government value as well, since they funding and training them. So I'm sure they will take some serious steps that such thing doesn't take place again.
Right. As you mentioned earlier, there are elders and community leaders that are currently intervening and trying to bring some sort of a reconciliation among the opposition parties and the government itself. But yet today it's been reported that the police are continuing in arresting officials from the opposition parties. As we know, there are MPs that are shot at. There are MPs that are and former ministers that are currently detained. How safe do you feel, and how much does the opposition trust these efforts by the elders, or how much can they rely on?
Well, I'm sure there's what the government did and what they're still doing, because they arrested more opposition members or officials even today while the negotiation or the dialogue or the mediation is taking place. And that shows that the government doesn't seem to be very serious about calming things down. They don't seem to be, willing to give a chance. The elders who organize themselves, and this is obviously traditional way Somaliland used to deal with any disputes between the governments or tribes or any issues which might, leads to a serious consequence for the country. And as I said, the government are still resting. We saw what they did on the other day when the rally took place, the assassination attempt, which is nearly, killed one of the bodyguards of the opposition candidate. And most of the officials who is at the moment locked up in prison are being tortured and beaten up badly, and some of them we are aware that they've been shot at and they're injured, or they're physically been beaten up, brutally beaten up, and they haven't been allowed doctors to see them. Or there are some of the, especially the previous minister who has a diabetes, he's been refused to give him medicines. His relatives went to the prison place last night to take some medicines for him, and they didn't allow. And we know that one of the eight officials who is arrested seriously is being beaten up and hasn't been allowed to see a doctor, and they've been all moved to further down to a place called Madeira, which is where they normally, the government takes any prisoner who's been been sentenced. And that shows the government are basically disregarding the law and disregarding the opposition parties, officials, and disregarding anything which democratic government value, and taking the laws in their own hands without respecting any laws. And so this actually is quite worrying, but we're still hopeful. We're still hopeful, and we still want to, we're expecting things hopefully will, change, and hopefully the president will listen to elders who are trying to, mediate between the opposition parties and the government.
As a chair of the House of Representatives Committee for Foreign Affairs, we see news that countries, namely the U.S. lawmakers, the U.S. Obviously still silent on what's going on in Somaliland. Their lawmakers, however, are pushing for direct engagement with Somaliland. What can you tell us about the validity and perhaps the scope of that engagement, and what's going on, what things that are going on, what effects that could have with that engagement?
Yes, we understand the lawmakers are pushing for direct engagement with Somali. USA to have a direct engagement with Somaliland, and I think it went through the House of Senators, and I think. I think that if I think I'm sure we all welcome as a Somalilanders to have a direct relationship or engagement with USA, and I'm sure it is both. But it's a sort of it's a win-win situation, and I'm sure the USA have an interest in the region, particularly in Somaliland and the Berbera Port or the base. And Somaliland, I'm sure, will benefit from it. But how the things are progressing, it seems to be very positive, and we are actually glad that things are moving to the right direction, which I think is very overdue, but at least is taking place and the progress is happening. So we are very much welcome and appreciate.
Right. Some are saying though that that engagement could be seen as rewarding bad behavior in terms of advancement in democracy, and not putting pressure on the government to stay on course for the democratization and establishment of the Horn of African region, and specifically to Somaliland. Do you share that sentiment?
And well, things were seems to be calm and okay before, when the this protest or the engagement process started from the USA senators or the House lawmakers, and the opposition parties do have a communication or engagement with the U.S. government and the embassies in Addis Ababa, and this is just a long-term thing, which is obviously beneficial for the country. And although things are bad at the moment, and I'm sure they will soon. We're hoping that they will put pressure on the current president, Somaliland president, or the current ruling party, and they will support us, Somaliland, to continue the progress we made in terms of democracy. But this is a long-term thing. So although things are bad at the moment, and we're expecting an election to take place sooner or later, so this is good for the country, but I'm sure they don't support the current situation and what the current government are doing to its citizens, and I'm sure they will put pressure on the president and the ruling party.
Yeah, let's to go to my final question. There's a school of thought out there that says the current Somaliland president, Musa Bihi Abdi, is not taking his cues from a more democratic countries, but rather from your neighbor, the Djibouti's president, Ismail Omar Guelleh, who's known for his dismal record on democratization and inclusiveness. And these analysts are also relying on the West not saying much about that situation. Perhaps this is what's fueling the current Somaliland government's thought in saying, heavy-handed and autocratic regimes are perhaps favored in Africa by the US military specifically. Do those sentiments have a legitimacy to them?
Although we understand that the President Musa Bihi has sort of like a dictatorship mindset or military style mindset, and which I sometimes I say is very old-fashioned mindset, because I think the president is still living in 60s and 70s, when the lot of dictatorships used to be in place in Africa, especially this part of Africa, and that's all changed, especially in Somaliland. Somaliland benefited from a democratic process and election taking place every 5 years and replacing presidents. And although we don't have any evidence for that, but his action or his behavior proves that he does have a very, military-styled dictatorship mindset. But even though he has that sort of agenda, and I don't think that is going to work in Somaliland, because Somaliland is completely different to what you call other country who's ruled by one president since they took the independence. Somaliland is completely different. We got used to change, and that's what we all demand. That's what the public demand. That's what they came out for the other day when they come out for the rally, and they will continue until they fulfill their dreams, which is Somaliland to continue on its road to have a peaceful election every 5 years without any delays.
Mohamed Jama Koodbuur, lawmaker from Somaliland, I immensely thank you for your time today and in explaining what's going on in Somaliland to our viewers. Much appreciated. You have a safe and great evening, and I look forward in talking to you in the future about these and other issues. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you.